Everyone online is arguing about the red lightning. Wrong argument. The lightning is just light. It's the flare, not the fire. If your house is burning down, you don't stand outside debating what shade of orange the flames are. You ask, what's burning? So tonight, we're not asking what the red lightning was. We're asking the question almost nobody in the fandom is asking. Why did pulling one tree out of the ground break the entire town open? Two people in that finale reacted to the tree coming down like it was the end of the world. Not the bones, not the earthquake, the tree. And those two people happen to be the ones who understand this town better than anyone alive. That should tell you something. This is from Season 4, Episode 10, If a Tree Falls in the Forest. MGM Plus just wrapped this season in April, and a week later, the show got confirmed for a fifth and final season, landing sometime in 2027. So we've got time before the story wraps up. Time to actually sit with what this finale did, instead of just reacting to it. Here's my claim for tonight. The bottle tree was never a wall keeping monsters out. It was a cork holding something in. And in this finale, the town pulled the cork. Let's build the case. The order matters more than people give it credit for. This isn't one big supernatural explosion. It's a sequence, and each step tells you something. Boyd's crew ties a rope to the bottle tree and hitches it to the town truck. They rip it straight out of the ground. The second it's gone, the creatures underground surge toward the opening. For a moment, daylight pouring through the new hole is the only thing holding them back. Then Sophia cuts the rope. Tabitha drops back into the tunnels. Then daylight goes out. Not a cloud passing over. The sky just switches off in the middle of the afternoon. Then the ground splits. An earthquake tears through the tunnel systems under the town. And only after all of that, after Marielle is already dead, the red lightning shows up. It comes climbing out of the exact hole where the tree used to stand and bleeds red into the clouds. Notice where it comes from. Not from the sky, down. From the ground, up. Whatever this is, it lives underneath. The tree wasn't standing guard over nothing. It was sitting on top of something. And here's the detail most recaps skip completely. After the lightning, after the storm settles over the town, we cut to Colony House. Ethan finds out his mother isn't coming back in the van. He runs inside, and while Julie and Donna try to calm him down at the kitchen table, the cabinets start slamming open by themselves. Glasses fly off the shelves. That's not part of the lightning show. That happens after. In a different building. It's the disturbance spreading on its own once the source is uncorked. If that Colony House scene felt familiar, it should. Go back to episode 1. Tabitha starts digging through her own basement floor, trying to reach whatever's underneath the house. And the house responds. Lights flicker with no wiring problem behind them. Something in the walls seems to notice her. The residents have a phrase for this. They call it disturbing the nature of the town. One woman, one hole, one house. A single point where the boundary got touched, and the town twitched back. Now, look at the finale again. It's the same twitch, except it isn't contained to one house anymore. It's rolling through Colony House, separate from the lightning, separate from the earthquake. The show is quietly telling you the scale changed. What used to be a local reaction to a small disturbance is now happening everywhere, because the disturbance stopped being small. Here's where the show has been hiding the real reveal in plain sight for 4 seasons. And it's not even hidden in the mythology. It's hidden in real American folklore. Bottle trees are a genuine tradition. They trace back to West and Central African spiritual practice, and they were carried into the American South by enslaved people who kept the custom alive. You hang glass bottles on bare tree branches. The idea is that wandering spirits are drawn to light catching in colored glass. They slip inside chasing it, get trapped, and when morning sun hits the bottle, whatever's inside is destroyed. The color matters too. A particular shade of blue, sometimes called haint blue, is considered the most protective because blue represents the line between the world of the living and the dead. And you don't plant one of these trees just anywhere. You plant it at a threshold, a gate, a property line, wherever a boundary is thin enough that something might slip across it. Now think about who built the bottle trees in this show. Miranda, Victor's mother, the one person in the show's history who had visions of this town before she ever set foot in it, and who eventually turns out, through one of the wildest reveals in season 3, to have been reincarnated as Tabitha herself, remembering her past life note by note through a melody hidden in the bottle's numbers. Miranda wasn't decorating a yard. She was practicing a real spiritual technology, one built specifically to trap something at a boundary. And she planted her tree directly over the tunnels, directly above the chamber where the sacrificed children's bones were buried. That's not random placement. That's exactly where the tradition says you're supposed to put one. Right where the seam between worlds runs thinnest. So the bottle tree was never a fence around the town. It was a plug sitting exactly on top of a wound in the ground. And in this finale, the residents hitched a truck to the plug and drove. Watch how the show scores this moment for you, because it does. Loudly, if you're paying attention. The boy in white, the entity that seems to be genuinely trying to help the residents, spends the previous episode begging Victor not to let anyone touch that tree. Not the talismans. That tree. Specifically. And Victor, the longest surviving resident in the show's history, the man who has outlasted almost everyone, comes out of his holding cell and the first thing he does is turn on Kenny. Not to ask who died, not to ask about the bones. He goes straight at Kenny for letting the tree come down. Two characters, both with the most experience in this town of anyone alive. Both react to the tree falling like it's the actual catastrophe. Worse than losing every talisman in town. That's the show telling you, without a subtitle, that everyone had the threat model backwards. The tree wasn't the obstacle, it was the safety. So if the tree was a seal, what exactly was it sealing? Rewind to season 1 again. Victor shows Tabitha the cave paintings the creatures leave behind in the tunnels. Among them is a red figure, tall, with long trailing shapes hanging off it, painted directly beside the tree root symbol that recurs through the whole show. Fans have nicknamed it the Red Jellyfish, though depending on how you look at it, it reads just as easily as a horned figure looming over everything else in the painting. Either read works with what follows. Here's the connection that matters. In the season 3 finale, Fatima comes out of a vision and says something that reframes the entire monster mythology. She says the townspeople sacrificed their children because something promised them immortality in return. Not each other. Not the man in yellow. Something else making the offer. Line that up with the red figure in the cave painting, and you get a shape for what's underneath this tree. Not a monster. The thing the monsters answer to, the one running the deals, the weather, the radio switching on by themselves, all of it from underneath the town, since before any of the current residents ever arrived. Here's the objection I'd raise if I were watching this theory instead of making it. If this thing has been sealed underground, how has it been pulling strings the entire show? You can't run a whole town's supernatural machinery from inside a bottle. You can, if the seal never blocked its influence. Only its body. Everything this presence has ever done, it's done through somebody else. It doesn't take the children itself, it convinces the town to hand them over. It doesn't hunt, the creatures hunt. It doesn't act directly, the man in yellow acts for it. 4 seasons of manipulation and never once a direct hand laid on anything. That's not a stylistic choice, that's a leash. It could whisper through the wound the tree was capping, but it couldn't reach through to physically remove the cap itself. It needed hands, human hands, which means the entire chain that leads to this finale. The bones used as bait, the tree framed as just an obstacle in the way, the truck, the rope, wasn't the residents' plan working. It was this thing's plan working, using the residents as the tool it's never had, which is also why the man in yellow never bothers sabotaging the tree himself in this finale. He doesn't need to. Watch that final scene again. The boy in white tells him the residents are getting close with the bones and he's going to lose. And the man in yellow's response is basically a shrug, because he already knows the bones were never the real prize. The tree coming down was, and the town did that themselves for free. That reframes the episode's title too. Everyone's mind jumps to the old philosophy riddle. If a tree falls and nobody's around to hear it, does it make a sound? Run that logic through what actually happens on screen. The tree falls and it makes an enormous sound. Red lightning tearing the sky open. The ground splitting apart, a house full of flying glasses miles away, and not one person standing there pulling that rope understood what they were actually hearing. I want to be straight with you about what's confirmed and what's my read stacked on top of it. Confirmed. The tree comes down, the disturbance escalates in the order I walk through, the boy in white begs against it. Victor treats it as the disaster, The same kind of household disturbance from season 1 recurs at a wider scale, and bottle trees are a real documented tradition about sealing thresholds. Those 5 things line up in the same direction, and any one of them alone wouldn't mean much. Together, they're hard to read any other way. What isn't confirmed yet, that the red figure in the cave painting is literally what sits underneath the tree, and that the word for what the tree was doing is specifically a seal rather than something looser. That's my extension of the evidence, not a line of dialogue from the show. I think it's the strongest reading available right now, but the show hasn't spelled it out, and with a 5th and final season confirmed for 2027, it's probably being saved for exactly that ending. So here's the actual conversation I want in the comments. Which piece of this would you throw out? The boy in white's warning, Victor's reaction, the direction the lightning comes from, the season 1 parallel, or the folklore itself. Tell me which one doesn't hold, because from where I'm sitting, none of them do. The residents think they lost a fight this finale. Some talismans, a couple of lives, one of their own. I don't think that's what actually happened. I think they found the one thing holding the worst part of this town shut, and they pulled it out with a truck because something down there finally got them to do it themselves. The tree fell. Nobody standing there heard what it meant. Something underneath it did. If you want the next breakdown the moment season 5 drops, you know what to do. See you in the next one.